2018, there are some really cool performance cars, but not many carry the big anticipation or excitement like the new Ford Fiesta ST. The engine is now a 3-cylinder 1.5 litre turbocharged unit that puts out a healthy 197 horsepower and 214 foot-pounds of torque, and it can also run on 2 cylinders for better fuel economy. But has the new one gone all soft, and is it still the king of its game? Well, we're in Nice to find out.
As I'm sure some of you may or may not know, I own a Fiesta ST. In fact, it was the first car I started my channel on, and it was my first hot hatch too, and I absolutely loved it. It's lived a hard life, but it can take so much punishment, and my favourite driving memories all come from that car. You know, forget the really expensive supercar stuff, because you could do things in it which you couldn't do in a £100,000 supercar. That's the point of hot hatches. And yeah, you just get into a rhythm with the old car where you just behave so badly, and everyone that drove it, well, spiritedly, in an Essex kind of way. Now, has this one lost its character? Well, no. There's 3 driver mode settings. You've got normal, sport, and race. Now, it says use race for track use only. I think for challenging B roads, like the Route Napoleon, I suppose it's smooth. It's the best setting of the lot. The steering, now it's been improved by 14%. It's a very, very quick rack, 2 turns lock to lock. And when you get into it, especially from the last generation car, I mean, there was nothing to brag about with the last steering on the previous Fiesta ST. It was sort of quick, and that's about it really. This is really, really quick, and you sort of have to slow down your reactions, but it's not too bad. You get into a rhythm of it, and when you do, oh my, you could just sort of pinpoint it everywhere. Another thing that I'm so happy Ford has kept is the handbrake. Hot hatches, not many of them have handbrakes, and this one does, so well done Ford, you've kept the handbrake. That means you could do some silly stuff like this. Gearbox, 6-speed manual gearbox. Shifts are nice, short, precise. The pedal setup is identical to the last car. That means heel and toe is really good. And yeah, another great thing that I'm happy that they've done is you come into a corner, mid-corner, and you've got so much turning now, and it's just been improved thanks to these developed Michelin Pilot Supersport tyres. Another thing that's unique now that you can spec part of the performance pack for 850 quid is the Qwave limited slip diff. Now, the last car had a torque vectoring system which was okay. It was great in the dry, but in the wet it sort of nipped and tugged a little bit. This one though, it's really good, especially yesterday in the wet, coming out of some of the corners. Normally in a front wheel drive car it'd start to drag its way out, build some understeer. You can deploy 200 horsepower very well, and obviously that tied in with these super sports, which actually cut through water really well, especially some of the standing water we've been on. It's really good. You could just feel it hold its line or sort of drive itself in, and it works with the ESC system too. You can go into the halfway house mode and it gives you quite a lot of slip. I like it off personally. And the grip and the way it loads itself up into a corner is really nice. It's lost some of its hard edge though. Some of its rough and ready gruff moments that you had in the Fiesta ST, especially when you're driving it 8 or 9 temps, which sort of made the element of driving really cool. It's sort of missing on this, but then we'd have to drive in the UK to actually find out more. At the minute, on these smooth French B roads, especially the Route Napoleon, what a place though, you know. it's really cool. There's a nice suggestion of roll, which is great because you can feel the tyres loading up a little bit into a corner. Another thing I quite like too is you can pitch it in on the brakes and you can get the rear axle to move around a little bit. I mean, Ford have worked hard to make this torsion beam rear axle behave really well and keep the contact patch on the road, but mid-corner it can't help but cock a wheel. The biggest talking point with this though is the engine. Gone is the 1.6 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder EcoBoost engine in favour of a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged unit. Now, I don't have a problem with 3 cylinders. They sound great, they're really awesome, but most of them have big flywheels and the revs take ages to climb down, and that sort of detracts the drivetrain and the driving experience, especially when you're rev matching downhill and so. But you know what? Ford have done a really, really good job. Don't get me wrong, it's not as energetic at the top end as the old car, but you've got this nice mid-range torque and the power delivery is so linear. The noise though is really, really cool though. They've worked hard with the exhaust, and as I'm sure you can hear, you get a really cool, nice, like a 6-cylinder Porsche kind of E46 325i soundtrack, and I love that. It's really, really cool. That mated to a 6-speed manual gearbox, which is really good. Gear change is nice and slick. It's a really nice engine. There's hardly much turbo lag either. About 3,000 RPM you can just get on the power. That's thanks to a Rax turbo they've been working on, which apparently gets rid of some of that lag. But the engine was something that I was super worried about, something that I thought was going to take away the essence of the driving experience. But with this, it's really good, and it can do some clever things like, you know, shut off a cylinder. It can run on 2 cylinders and it can do it in 40 milliseconds. I know it's geeky stuff, but I suppose some chicks would think that. It's a really cool engine. I'm just so happy it hasn't been ruined. So well done Ford on that. But overall, has it lost the yobbishness? Has it lost that Essexness that I really loved about it? Well, do you know what? No. In fact, you can still be a hooligan, a proper hooligan. And now that the road is drying out a little bit, like I said, you can get into a rhythm with this car. And with the quick steering and the Qwave Diff, yeah, it's really cool. Mid-corner, it just cocks up its rear wheel, but you still got lots of turning precision, which helps a lot. And the noise, you know, paired with really cool suspension, just makes the driving experience really good. And yes, I still don't think there's a car out there in its class that can do what this car does, especially now it's 3 cylinders. I think 3 cylinders is better than 4 in terms of noise. I know each to their own on that, but yeah, I'm really impressed by this. It's definitely top of its class. And another important thing is, take away the performance side, this is now a far more easier car to live with. Ford have been trying hard to do that. You know, the last car was a bit jiggly, it was a bit firm on long journeys. You do get quite tired. The old Recaro bucket seats, you know, was good, but yeah, you'd get a stiff back. It wasn't that good. I mean, well, it was good in terms of driving on track, but it was quite tiresome after a while. With this, the cabin's really nice, the instrument layouts are really cool, the seating position, the old car's seating position felt like you were sitting in a Transit. This one with these new really nice slick Recaro bucket seats looks really cool, and to look at, I think it's a special cabin. I mean, but who cares if the cabin's good or not? This car starts at $18,995. We need to talk about that. And with the Qwave Diff, which I'm sure is better than the one spec'd without, which I haven't driven, this car with options loaded just knocks on at 23 grand. And you tell me what other car does that? Because Mini John Cooper works, that's too much money, and doesn't have a diff, and has really weird steering. The Clio RS is getting on a bit now, and let's be honest, it was never good compared to the Fiesta ST. It was a good car, but just wasn't as eager as the Mark 7 model. Fiat 500 a Bath, forget about that. Mind you, that's a completely different class car. Audi S1, again, getting on a bit, and 30 grand, and is a really numb car and understeers. This, though, manages to do all the boxes, and that's a very, very important thing, and Ford are going to sell a load of these by a big margin.
But I do have some problems though, and it's the styling. The rear end just doesn't quite have the sharp angles of the last model, and it's quite hard to tell that this one is the full fat ST than an ST line, but hey, that's just me. Overall though, it's a mighty impressive hot hatch. The new engine sounds way better than the last model, and whoever says otherwise is a liar. Pair that with an engaging chassis, it adds a specialty to the driving experience. Once again, Ford has nailed it.